and Novak Djokovic was there. And I just remember him looking into my eyes and saying, what you're doing is amazing. I'd love to help.
Welcome to season 2 of the Inside Out podcast, Court Chronicles, 73 flights, 46 countries, 1 year, the journey of Cameron Mofid. My name is Alex Gruskin, really excited to bring you part 1 of our next season of this podcast because, as I mentioned in the intro, there are so many outstanding stories, so many incredible ways tennis can help facilitate the interests of tennis fans across the globe. It's the experiences so many of us have, whether it be training with our friends growing up or going to that court at our local park, playing with our loved ones, all of the different things tennis can do. And it's truly a global experience as well. It's one of those few sports played across the globe. You show up to any tennis court, it doesn't matter your religion, it doesn't matter your creed, your socioeconomic status. The fact that you know how to play tennis will immediately connect you with the rest of the tennis community in your presence. And of course, so many of us get to have amazing experiences being across the globe and seeing our favorite tennis stars perform there, tournaments taking place in 6 of the 7 continents. And so there are so many great stories to tell. That's what we've been doing here on the Inside Out podcast. And that's why we, again, are so excited to be joined by Cameron Mofid to tell his story. Cameron, welcome back to the show for part 1. How are you feeling? A little bit anxious as we get ready to share some of these details?
Yeah, I'm good, excited, ready to go. Definitely looking forward to starting, I guess, part 1 of what was a pretty incredible year for me.
Yeah. And again, the headline says it all. 73 flights, 46 countries, 1 year. We are ready to take you on a journey. And part 1 of this story begins with, not only the journey itself, your destination. And again, all of you listeners, if you want to read more about Cameron's journey, you can find part 1 as an article on our Cracked Racquets websites. Hopefully all of you are watching this on YouTube. If you're listening to it in podcast form, though, know that you can see both Cameron and my smiling faces, my unshaven face, his cleanly shaven, of course, because he's a professional. But of course, all of photos and videos Cameron took in this journey as well on this YouTube video. So be sure to go check that out. All right, Cameron, in the intro, I asked you to tell me a little bit about your experiences in tennis. And in the beginning of this journal, you talk about the fact that you were, at 17 years old, a senior at Sanchez Casal. And for those who don't know, who are casual tennis fans, Sanchez Casal, one of the elite tennis academies, probably throughout the globe, regardless of where you're from, regardless of where the academy might be located. Tennis was always a big part of your life, but take back, for people who don't know, you are 20 now. This journey begins at the end of 18. I'm doing some quick math there. That puts you at about 17, 18 years old. What's going through your mind at that time as these plans for your journey begin to come together?
Yeah, so I guess rewinding back 3 years before, 17 years old, I'd moved from San Diego to Naples and was training at Sanchez. And I think just being surrounded by so many different students from so many different cultures, so many different countries, religions, whatever it was. And kind of the tennis aside, just that cultural part of it was really the driving force and what made me want to travel, what made me want to see the world. For these ITF junior tournaments, we were going to these islands, every week and meeting, even more kids outside of the academy from all these different countries and speaking all these languages. As I said in the intro, I was the only student who spoke English in my graduating class. I was a student of, graduating class of 12 people, 7 of them from different countries. So it was a pretty unbelievable experience in that way.
Yeah. When you talk about playing in remote islands, what that tells me is that you must have been pretty good as a junior. And so just, again, to provide a little bit more context for the listeners, talk a little bit about your playing career. What were some of the players, maybe you weren't competing against directly, but certainly traveling to these events, getting to see and play, compete with?
Sure. Yeah. Even before starting at Sanchez, I remember in Miami when we were earlier, we had Brennan Nakashima there. And I would see Brennan around at all the tournaments in San Diego. I mean, of course, he was miles and miles and miles, better than me. Yeah, I mean, I was one of those players, I think, where I just didn't have per se the talent that I needed to be at the top. I worked very hard. I was in the gym. I was doing yoga classes by myself. I was eating well. I was doing everything I could to be the best I could be, and I'm very proud of that because I was not. I was never one of the best players in the country. I was never, anywhere near the top of the ITF rankings. For me to even get an ITF ranking, I think, top, kind of proved to myself that, I had a goal and I accomplished it. And so, yeah, I mean, just kind of in these ITF tournaments, Shintaro Mochizuki, he won Wimbledon juniors. I was a few points away from playing him. We lost in a third set tiebreak. And so, being around those players in those tournaments was also pretty cool to see their success now.
Yeah. And again, that speaks to just being in that environment. And, mine wasn't at the ITF level, but you just grow accustomed to being at tennis events. I know it now when we're doing our Cracked Rackets tournaments. There's just a level of comfort, I feel, knowing, okay, these are my people. These are the people. We've all felt a 30-minute delay because this match is going 3-set, and we're all frustrated at these two people who we've never even met or talked to before because their match is taking too long. And it's just the little things like that, or the little side commentary, man, that guy is Trinian, or all of these different things. You grow up in the tennis culture. It's an environment you grow used to surrounding yourself with. And, for me, could I have played college tennis? Yes, but not at a university I would have wanted to attend. And so I ultimately had to give up my college tennis passions, my, playing competitively at that level. And I went elsewhere. I went to U of M. That's how we'll differentiate one another. You can call yours UM. We've earned the of in between. Myself, Michigan. I know you went to the University of Miami. That's a joke for you listeners at home, some context. But for me, making that decision to go to U of M, I knew I was going to be giving up competitive tennis. And, that's something, if our Cracked Rackets fans are well aware of, that it was always hard for me to deal with. And that's why I turned to club tennis for you, knowing that, again, you grew up training at Sanchez Casal. A lot of those players you just mentioned, they're still playing professional tennis now. To know, how much did that, the fact that you knew probably pro tennis wasn't in the cards for you, and just dealing with that recognition, that realization, what was that process like for you? And again, you talk about it a little bit in the piece. How did that lead to this trip?
Yeah, it was actually I remember it was around Thanksgiving of my senior year, and just something just wasn't clicking. It was right around the time when college, application process was, and I just didn't. I definitely, I could have played at a lot of D1 schools. I had a lot of offers from, some scholarship offers to play at schools that I didn't really want to go to, and so for me, it was just this kind of inner war. There was, and nothing that the academy did wrong. It was just, I'm surrounded by, an academy that's nurturing either collegiate players or professional players. And for me to say, all right, well, I'm going to be the only one that doesn't even play college tennis. And at the time I didn't have Legends United, which is my foundation. I wasn't involved with any of the professional tournaments. And so, it definitely was a tricky thing for me because I just didn't want to let anyone down. I didn't want to let my mom down, who had, sent me there. I didn't, want my peers kind of look down on me a little bit. But at the same time, I kind of trusted that I needed to be doing something else that I was, going to be passionate about going into college. I didn't want to, hate tennis for 4 years in college. I didn't want to be unhappy in that way. And so when I stopped, it was, finally like this breath of fresh air. And I remember I went to New York, I visited NYU, and I came back and I said, I want to start a business or something, project. And I got back in early January and I made a list of 25 ideas, ranging from, automated stringing machine to apps, players, and Legends United was kind of born in that way.
Yeah, I think what people don't realize in when you do something like Legends United or something like a Great Shot podcast, so often it literally comes down to just sitting down and saying, hey, I have this idea. Let me take action with it. Hey, for us making this podcast, it was literally me just pestering, Max Rothman, Max Fliegner, my two Great Shot podcast co-founders, and being like, hey, just entertain me. Like, just record this once for me. If it sucks, I'll never ask you again, but I don't think it's going to suck. And I guess it'll be up to the listeners to make that decision. But, the fact that we're 3 years in, I think some of the jury is out. It doesn't completely suck. And so, yeah, for you, obviously, Legends United did not suck. That led to so many great opportunities for you. And ultimately, you end up partnering with Nick Kyrgios and, getting to do some really cool things because of that. We've talked about it before, but again, to our listeners who this story is new for, can you talk a little bit about what Legends United was? What you sort of told us where it came from, but ultimately, what you were able to accomplish through it?
Yeah, so I guess I'll go back to the genesis of it. I had this idea to take professional tennis players' equipment, memorabilia, and auction it off. Initially, to auction it off, we wound up, just selling it, at a fixed price, but to auction it off for different charities. And Casper Fernandez, he was a student at the academy who passed away of bone cancer, Ewing sarcoma, right before I got to the academy. And so I never get to meet Casper, but obviously his legacy was all around. It was literally a month after he passed, I was there. And so I said, what, I think it would be pretty cool to, partner with different player-based charities and maybe specifically Ewing sarcoma to do something there. And so I wound up Emilio Sanchez. He's been one of my greatest mentors, a friend of mine. Someone that I admire so much. Number one in the world in doubles. Olympic champion, Grand Slam champion. And he connected.
Can I just say, what's so funny is that's not even the biggest name drop you'll have of this series, but yes, go on.
Yeah, and so Emilio connected me with internships. Started in Delray Beach, and so I got all the players' information there. And I actually met Nick playing basketball. This is back in 2018. Players were really nice, made a lot of great connections. And so the Bryans were there, and for me, I was 17 at the time, and to have, all these players giving me their phone numbers and emails, I felt a little bit like a superstar. And Peter Goyovchuk, he was by himself that week, and he made the finals, and I was with him all week, kind of training him because he didn't have coaches there that week. And so moving along, Emilio sent me off to I did Sarasota Challenger. I did Miami Open before that, actually. And then I went to Europe. I did Barcelona, Munich, and Madrid. And in Madrid, that's actually where I decided, which is what I write about in the memoir, is kind of the tipping point of me wanting to take a gap year, because I had already been accepted to UM. I was just a few weeks out from graduating from high school, and Novak Djokovic was there. He passed right by me, and he said, I walked up to him and kind of gave him my pitch, not really knowing what to expect. And, I just remember him looking into my eyes and saying, what you're doing is amazing. I'd love to help. Genuinely, he said, wait here 15 minutes. He went upstairs, got his match shirt. He beat Nishikori from earlier in the day. And his agent came out. We did pictures and videos, and he signed his shirt. And I remember going back inside. This actually isn't in the memoir, but I remember going back inside, and I was already a little bit emotional. Novak had, was my childhood idol, and Emilio was there, and he was trying to introduce me to the future tournament director, Feliciano Lopez. And so, and so I go up there, and I'm just, a little bit shaken already, and he's trying to talk to me, and I'm just trying not to talk because I just knew I was, going to cry or something. And yeah, I mean, it's crazy time.
Yeah, no, that is so cool to hear. And again, I really do recommend viewing this on YouTube if you're listening in podcast form, because you have the photo of yourself rocking a beautiful jean jacket, I might add, and Novak Djokovic with his Lacoste shirt. And again, it's even before that, some of the trips you've gotten to take throughout your career. You talk about working in Delray. You want to know what it's like to be a Delray intern. Go look at these photos. It's you printing out all the press credentials or in the press credential room. And, that is what life, when you're trying to break in, you take all the little jobs, any opportunity to get into the door of the tennis industry, you have to pursue, because tennis is not an industry with a plethora of options, right? You really have to carve your own path if you want a way in. And I also think that's one of the takeaways. And obviously, given what we're trying to do here at Crack Rackets, that's why your story appeals to us so much, because, yeah, the Novak Djokovic headline and then meeting Feliciano Lopez gets buried. That's probably the lead. But what you did with Legends United, again, turning player I want to say paraphernalia, but I don't think that's the word. Turning, just taking all this memorabilia. Thank you. There it is. It's in the Belia family. To take all this player memorabilia, get it signed, and then, use the profits to donate to charity. That's just not something you think of off of the top of your head. And of course, every person has stood in line, right? After a match, if you were a kid, you tried to get the player who won to sign that tennis ball, or you tried to catch the ball that they rocket off into the crowd, whatever it may be. Legends United makes that experience just much more reasonable, and it's also supporting such a great cause. And so it's so great to hear how many players were receptive to your efforts for Legends United. And you talk about it, to take a chance there, and to decide, hey, I think I'm going to take a gap here because what I'm doing seems to be working. There seems to be some momentum behind it. Obviously, that is so incredible. My question to you here, and this gets into the next part of the story, do you make that decision without knowing you had the support from obviously Nick, but also Christos Kyrios that you did? And how did you, eventually earn, or how did you earn that support?
Yeah. So, I guess so I'm with Feliciano and with Emilio in Madrid. And we go, I kind of try to cut the conversation short. And I just remember rushing I didn't want to even use the bathroom around the players, because I didn't want anyone to walk in. I just remember running to this, one of the public bathrooms on the tournament site, and just going to one of the stalls and just let everything out. I was crying and shaking, and just that was kind of the first. I didn't even know what was going on. It was just so many different emotions, and that's when I kind of said, all right, this is something I have to really consider. I go back to the academy. I finished my classes, so I was done with high school pretty much. My graduation, there was like a 4-day break between classes finishing and graduation, and I DM'd Christos and said, hey, on Instagram, with the Legends United Instagram. At that point, we had a significant amount of memorabilia. I had collected a lot of stuff from the players in Madrid and in Munich and Barcelona and Miami and Del Rey. And I said, Christos, I'd be interested in supporting the NK Foundation, seeing if we could help each other out in some ways. And, we got into a call. And I thought about it, and I said, look, I have the support now of Christos and the NK Foundation, and I think I'm doing some good things. I built the website. I had a good following on the Instagram, and I said, all right, let's do it. And I called UM and said, look, is there any way? I know it's very late. It was June 1st. I said, is there any way that I could delay my gap year? This is what I'm doing. And it was cutting it close because, I was only a couple months out of starting in my freshman year, and they said, okay, you can do it. And the rest is history.
No, obviously it was a great decision to make. And as you're partnering with the Nick Kyrgios Foundation, you talk about this, you get to travel across Asia and Europe, and, we get to see some of those photos as well. And I can only imagine getting to do that, not only getting to collect the memorabilia and raise money for an excellent cause, such as the Nick Kyrgios Foundation, which for those who aren't aware, supports underprivileged youth in their sporting ambitions. That was a nice little precursor, right, to your travels. I have to imagine you could do a separate series on some of the fun you had going around for Legends United.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun stories. I remember after I graduated, I think I went. Where did I go first? I went to Newport, Rhode Island, I want to say, after I graduated in July. There's a gap there I'm missing, but I went to Newport in July. Ram Kumar was one of my suite mates. He was around 130 or 140 in the world at the time, and he wound up making the finals of that 250 event. And so I went there and supported him and was in his camp the whole time, and just seeing him make the finals of the 250, for him, that was a dream come true. He lost a tough one to Stevie, and the support of Todd Martin there. I collected so much stuff for the foundation, and went on to intern in World Team Tennis for the New York Empire. Not even intern, I shouldn't say. I guess that's a disrespect to the real interns, but I was a volunteer there for a few days, and I went to DC for the event there on behalf of the foundation. I went over to US Open after that, Asia. I was in Bangkok, I was in Singapore, I was in Hong Kong, Macau, then flew over to Europe for the tournaments, Next Gen in Milan and the finals in London. And so went back I used to train at Rafa's Academy in Mallorca, Rafa Nadal's Academy. And so went to visit friends there. So even before this 2019, I think I set myself up pretty well, and I was definitely ready to travel.
Yeah, no. And again, you sort of talk about some of those experiences in the written piece. And, as you look through the photos, so many cool things you were able to do during this first time. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I have looked through the photos, there's a video of you going bungee jumping. And I think that's a precursor to some future skydiving that we see later on as well. But here we go. The bungee jumping happened in your travels for Legends United, correct?
Yeah, I was in Hong Kong. There was a WTA international event there, and I think I was only there for 1 or 2 more days, and it was at the end of the tournament. I had done what I wanted to for the foundation. And Macau is about an hour away, and it's where the tallest bungee jump in the world was. And I was 18, so I didn't have to have my mom sign any liability waivers or anything. I actually didn't even tell her about it. And so I got over there. I didn't tell her about it until after the fact. So I got over there, and yeah, it was pretty intimidating, but I jumped off that, and I had a great day. It was kind of like the Las Vegas of the East, Macau. And I played baccarat, and I won a little bit there, and so I had a bunch of Macanese supporters behind me at the casino. I actually had to sneak into the casino, I believe, because you had to be 21 to gamble in Macau. I got kicked out of the Venetian, I think, and had to go to like the I don't even know, MGM or something like that, to a different casino. But yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, very much worthwhile, right?
Yeah, it was very worthwhile.
Yeah, no, that's so awesome to hear. And, during your travels as well for Legends United, you talked about getting to play basketball with Nick Kyrgios.
Oh, no, look. AD wouldn't like that. Yeah! Oh!
So give a go.
Oh, no, look. AD wouldn't like that. Yeah!
There's also a beautiful moment where you get crossed up by Bernard Tomic. And I just got to ask, tennis players as hoopers, better or worse than you would expect?
No, Bernard and Nick are unbelievable. Nick, I was under the impression that Nick, if he had put his mind to it, could have been a professional basketball player. I've watched him, I think, in the players' lounge go like 8 or 9 free throws in a row. It's pretty incredible. So yeah, I mean, I played with him 2018, 2019. Yeah, so I'm in Delray. I just finished up Kevin Anderson's charity event just a couple months before. I was helping out there, and the Bryans and Kevin and Tennis Sandgren, they donated a bunch of rackets and shoes and shirts. And fast forward, so now 2019, my year is starting. I went to the Dominican Republic with a Filipino alum of mine, a friend of mine. His name was Manu, and so chilled there for a bit. Go back to Delray for the 2019 tournaments, mostly on behalf of Legends United this time. And in the players' lounge, and Nick and Bernard are there playing basketball. Nick, actually, I got to play with Nick this time, so I was on the same side as him. But Bernard, yeah, that was one of the more embarrassing moments of my sporting career. He put. We'll show the video, I think, on the pod or on the video pod. But he, I don't know, kind of juked me out and held the ball between his legs and fooled me like a school child. So that wasn't.
No, I mean, look, that's just that's what happens anytime you compete against a pro athlete, I suppose, in anything, right? Like to expect to be able to hang at their level, not the easiest thing in the world. And again, just to sort of talk about the things behind the scenes, to be able to travel tournament to tournament, event to event, see these pros not only compete on the court, but also what they're like themselves having to do all of this travel and, having what they're like off the court in between matches. What tidbits would you share? What things were you maybe surprised about that our listeners would find interesting?
Yeah, I mean, I think tennis. I think some. I mean, I guess it depends on the player, but sometimes I think tennis players give off, the fact that they're a little bit more serious than they actually are, and so these players, they lose, especially in the smaller events, and they like to have a good time. And so this is a story I didn't write about in my memoir, but I'm happy to share it here. So
Nice.
yeah, so Bernard, yeah, I mean,
Keep it rated R. I was gonna say with Bernard, not NC-17, R at the limit.
yeah, I mean, so look, I mean, I think he has a very misconstrued reputation. I mean, there are some things he says and does that, of course, I think he regrets and aren't so good. But he's a very generous. He's a very good guy. He kind of took me under his wing that week, and he invited me out. So I remember how old was I? I was 19, 18. I was still 18. And yeah, just about to turn 19. And it was going to be my first time going to a nightclub, and I was pretty excited. And he said, come out. Let's, I lost. Actually, no, he was still in. Sorry, it was before he lost. And he was still in. It was before his first round match. It was like, I think he had a match at 11 a.m. And it was like, he said, come out. And I remember I didn't have any ID to get in. I wasn't going to, you needed to be 21 when I was 18. And Bernard, he likes to spend big. So he got, I showed up at a table and all that. And he just said, look, like, I don't want to have you, I don't want to, it'd be a pretty bad look if I walk in with you and I get, pictures in media. The Australian media already hates me and I'm already in hot water. So try to get in and do what you can. And I kind of, dodged around a little bit and was able to borrow an alternative identification. For another way to say it, I guess.
Anyways, you got into the bar. Yes.
Got into the bar, and yeah, that was a magical night, wasn't it? That was fun. I remember, and that actually kind of changed so much of my life because that night, another tennis fan recognized Bernard. His name was Robbie. And first I was like, oh, who's this guy? Like just trying to come up to Bernard. But he was super cool. And he was an unbelievable tennis player when he was a junior. And now, Robbie's friend group is now my closest friend group here in Miami. I spend so much time with them. And so that night really changed, I don't want to say the course of my life, but I guess it kind of did.
No, anytime the story starts nightclub with Bernard Tomic, you absolutely have my attention. I feel like when you get into the bar, does he let you into the table? He's like, dude, you made it?
Of course. He brings me in and I don't know. We'll have to see if we want to put some of these pictures and videos in.
Well, I'll say this. Was he surprised to see you?
No, he was
proud. He was like, you made it. Well done.
Yeah, he was nice. I mean, he's awesome. And so, yeah, we had our own like VIP section. It wasn't even a table, and a lot of bottles. And he had a very animated friend, Sheldon, who was, also awesome. And yeah, that was just a pretty awesome night for me. I remember, and the next day I think he lost doubles first round and singles first round. But yeah, I mean, it was still a great event as far as I'm.
But it made it into the Court Chronicles. So I think in the end, absolutely a win. And for you, again, your 6 months you spend traveling for the Nick Kyrgios Foundation for Legends United. By the end of it, you had grown a pretty solid revenue stream, correct?
Yeah. So by the end of February, beginning of March, we had so much stuff in inventory. And I had been collecting from February of the year before, and we'd only launched the store in October, November, end of October. And so we still had so much inventory left, and we were trying to figure out, do we do auction or buy it now? And yeah, I mean, stuff was selling good. We had, racquet shirts, Andy Murray donated stuff. Novak had donated. The Bryan brothers donated tons of stuff. We'll throw up the pictures there. Kevin Anderson had donated stuff. And so for me, I think at that point in time, I said, all right, I shipped so much stuff to Australia to Christos. I said, Christos, store it. He had a professional photographer, professional coder, do the website, and everything was going really well. That was kind of where I said, all right, this is where I want the foundation to be. I'm really happy.
No, and again, from there, you set yourself up in a position to have a little bit of fun before you go off to the University of Miami. And so as we round out this part one, because, part two will really get into your journey heading off to Mallorca, getting on the plane, as you mentioned at the start of 2019, you come back, you work the Del Rey event, and then you start to, you go to the Miami Open, I believe that year, but then from there, you get ready to head off on your journey. At what moment do you buy that first airfare or set up all the trip? At what moment did you know what, I'm pulling the trigger on this experience?
Yeah, so it's Delray Beach was a great tournament. I had a lot of fun. We did a lot of good things for Madison Keys Foundation, Madison Keys charity, Fearlessly Girl. We did some good stuff for Emilio Sanchez's foundation, for Sean Carl Foundation. They did UN sarcoma research for Nick's foundation. And so after that, I went to Miami Open. And to be honest, I didn't love it. I didn't love the new tournament. It wasn't as special for me as Key Biscayne. I had my 19th birthday over the Miami Open. And so I was starting to feel a little bit older. I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous, but, I said, all right, well, my gap year is almost over. And I kind of just said, all right, I'm going to go for this. My friends from Rafa's Academy said, you should come over and come visit us. It's been a while. And I said, all right. So I booked a one-way flight to Mallorca.